Hi Facebook, it's Gary Weaving here, CEO of Forgotten Veterans. This is a bit of an impromptu live. I've been looking at one of my posts and it was involving Robin Williams. And we know Robin Williams took his own life due to suicide, okay? And I think it started to spark a few questions. And Forgotten Veterans Group is a platform to allow people to have freedom of speech whilst being respectful and dignified. And we will only... Hi Nick, well done for joining. And we will only censor things if people are being abusive, not because they've got a different point of view. I've seen a few comments and I can see the argument on both sides. Please show yourself if you're here, because this is a Q&A. I want you to get involved. It's a tricky subject. It's a tough subject to handle, especially at the moment. But I'm going to approach it because it needs to be addressed. So, some are saying people that commit suicide are selfish because it leaves such a wake of devastation. I don't disagree. It leaves a wake of devastation. And having my own suicidal problems, can you show yourself if you're watching so I know you're there, please? I feel I've got the right to comment. I also, hi Jesse, I also have worked very closely with people that are in that position and have constantly got those problems. And I've also got the honour of working with some of the families of the deceased for last year. So I hope me addressing this subject and giving my opinion is not going to upset anyone, because that is not why I set out to do what I do. But the reality is, we've got a vast and growing problem. It's been going for years. I didn't just jump on this year as a trend. I have been looking at this subject and emailing people in power about the crisis that we are facing within our own community. Hi Victoria Stone. Oh, I'm under pressure now. I've got a combat stress worker, or ex. So is it selfish? When I was ill, and I was really ill, and I think the world knows that how ill I was and how I was let down within my part of this world. I've learned to take it not personally, because the problem was vast. I thought it was just me. I just thought it was me that was let down or not good enough for help, or my injuries weren't wary enough, or I wasn't a para, or I didn't have 12 medals, so just one Afghanistan medal wasn't good enough. But the reality is, the problem is vast. And it opened my eyes to what's been going on. And as you're all aware, most of you, I've been on mental health boards now, and I'm working with the NHS and blah, blah, blah to move this forward. But for a long time, I wanted to not wake up. That's the truth. A long time. And I was being very reckless. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I was self-medicating because I didn't want to be in this world, in body or mind. And when I used to overdose on tablets regularly, I didn't want to wake up. and I was prepared for that. So in a way, that weren't even a proper suicide bid sometimes. It was a bit of a coward's one. I just hoped I wouldn't live. Not cowards, sorry, that was the wrong words. I was, I was being a coward. If I wanted to do it, I should have done it. Not just mixed about. And eventually, I got to that point where enough was enough. I felt so let down by the army, by society, by some people around me maybe, I don't know. The truth of it was, a lot of it was my doing, because I was so unwell. And the day I did what I did, before when I started taking all those tablets, it was the calmest I'd been in days. It was like I'd actually finally realised, convinced myself, this is what needs to be done. There is not a space or use for gas weaving in this world. And when I was swallowing those tablets, and I took a massive overdose, I wanted to die. The paramedics were counting all the empty boxes, apparently, and saying to my wife, there was no way he's taken all of this. And she said, no, those were all unsealed boxes. I have to keep his pill pot locked away from him. But because he couldn't get in the boxes, I thought I could keep on top of it. I barricaded myself in. I didn't want to be helped. I didn't want to be here. And I entered a tunnel, and all I could see was bad things. My bad points, my failings, my issues, my aggression, my anger, my depression. All I could see was images of all the things that have gone wrong. Army, PTSD, disabilities, career. I pushed my family away. I pushed her family away. I pushed everyone away. And I was on self-destruct. And I couldn't see the goodness. I couldn't see it. I couldn't see that I've got an awful lot. More than most. And one of the hardest things I had to do was come home and explain to my teenage children why I didn't want to be their dad anymore. Yes, in hindsight, I can see it was selfish. But I'm making it really clear right here, right now. I can only speak for me. I'm not going to tell you about other people's problems because they're all different. But me, I could not see the goodness. I could only see the darkness. And it was the way forward for me. And it was the greatest sign of love I could have shown my family. And that was to set them free from me. I firmly believe I was very mentally ill. I was. And I personally feel I was not in my right mind. And I wasn't for some time afterwards because I was going to do it again. And I'd learnt from the first time what I had to do this time. And it's only since I started getting the help and started getting support and started getting mental health that I started to wake up to myself and see the goodness I've got, the qualities I do have. I've started putting those voices of doubt to one side and started accepting that I've got a lot to offer society. Let me read some of your comments. At the time, it was not selfish, more doing the right thing for all, and the only option. With speedy intervention, we can get through sometimes if we get help. I was brought up to be led to believe it was a coward's way after witnessing a suicide at the age of 13. However, my opinion has changed after seeing things as I get older and served. It's easy for people to sit here and just judge that they've had a sheltered life without knowing the facts. Yeah, I think, look, there's great evidence that children that are brought up badly, okay, and they've been susceptible to traumas, whether it be dad beating mum, nan and granddad dying, mum's on the vino every night, separations, mental health problems within their own family. There's an evidence that these traumas as a child then haunt you into adulthood. And that's what we're creating. Through poor parenting, we are creating the next generation of problems and mental health. And our society's moved on so quickly that, they're banging them out at 18, 15, 16, 17 into abusive, drunken, drug-fueled relationships on the edge of poverty because these youngsters can only get flat if they've got a kid. And of course, that is going to have an impact on that child. So, do I think people that had bad childhoods only suffer with PTSD? No, I don't. Not in the slightest. And it's a simple and easy excuse for the powers that be to blame it on everything but themselves. We've got a massive suicide problem. It's not new. It's not because of Iraq and Afghanistan. It's because of all the conflicts, what we've seen, what we've gone through, the lack of support over the years with mental health. Because if you don't understand a problem and you don't actually try and help a problem, then it's going to grow. And this is what's happened. We are spawning a whole generation and tsunami of PTSD and severe mental health because of years of underinvestment, either in the forces or in our care through the NHS. We closed the war hospitals, but we didn't fund or train the NHS to really deal with us. So now, 30 years later, surprise, here we all are talking to each other on social media going, so you felt like that? So you have those nightmares? So you do those weird things? So you feel hopeless, empty, lost? And then we start all teaming up together like we have and sharing data because that's what we're doing. So in a way, social media has become the MOD's worst enemy. That's the truth. Because we now all talk to each other. And it's sort of come to the unsticking of some of these larger organisations. Because we're all talking to each other. And we're all having a little sniff around accounts. And the more that we're finding, the more that people start looking. So we've inbred this problem. We've created it ourselves. Do I think you go into the army and definitely end up with mental health problems when you come out? No. But it all depends on what support you had and what you actually did and saw. The army have only, in the last year or two, started to take a completely different approach to mental health. I was made to feel I wasn't good enough. I was made to feel I was a biff. I was made to feel like I had some sort of disease because I had the balls to be honest. And so I'm really struggling because of my experiences while serving for many different factors. You kick them out the door. You go, we'll have that Mod 90 back. Everything you've been trained, everything that you've done, we'll break you, we'll make you, but we're not going to undo you. And now you can go and live in a grotty council flat if you can get one. And, you know, no wonder we've had this onslaught of problems. No wonder. You get the old... I'm going to read a little question. You get the older generation who say, it never happened in my day. The military was the only way to get mental health illness. I think there has been comments of, oh, well, what about the blokes after World War One? What about the blokes after World War Two? They were made of sterner stuff then. They didn't complain. They just got on with it. No, this has been going on for 100 years. Back then, the families didn't talk about it because there was a stigma. They didn't talk about Grandad having nightmares in the chair once he'd had a bit too many gins. They didn't talk about the fact that their dad killed themselves because it was seen to be the coward's way out of life. I think this has been going on for years, and they've called it different things for different battles and different eras, as we know. And at the end of the day, again, they were cowards, it was shell shock, it was this, it was that, it's now PTSD. Whatever you shake it up as, it's traumas caused by war and service, however you badge it up. So we must learn from this, and we must stop making people feel like they're a coward because they're trying to check out. Let's look at the sort of things that have gone on recently, right? All the austerity cuts. We know they had to happen because there was a lot of people, excuse my language, taking the piss in this country with stuff like PIP and illness. And we know we had to shake it up and take it away from a lot of people and reassess them and try and shirk off some of the people that are abusing this system. But for Christ's sake, we should have left the veterans till last. Because if you put mental health on top of physical disabilities, on top of debt, that was the crunch for a lot of people. The debt, on top of everything else. Because they took the PIP away from soldiers that have been having it for years. And it has become a stable part of their very minimal income. Yes, it's meant to be spent on your disability, age, travel, medication, la-di-da, la-di-da, right? But because they decided PTSD is not really a thing for Pip, you know, all these youngsters and older generation and females, it's not just susceptible to men, they couldn't get to their Pip hospital appointments because that's what they used the money for. So they still had to go, they still had to have the mental health support, they still had to have what they needed, but they couldn't afford it. So they got in debt. And that's what's been going on. It's a mixture of it all. My phone's going to run out shortly. Has anyone got any other comments? They may see it as the most kindest act they can do for their loved ones. Suicide may take one life, but enjoys so many more. If a physical illness killed as many people, in particular young men, brackets, as suicide brought by mental health, then much more should be done by the government and the NHS. Yes, I agree. But also, but the reality is, they have been helping. Johnny Mercer showed that the other day in Westminster. Where's all the money gone, guys? Tell me what you've spent our £1 billion on. So, it's not that no one's helped. Do they need to do more? Of course they do. Do we need a veterans agency so we come under one blanket? Of course we do. Do veterans, soldiers need to be risk assessed and put on a scale from 1 to 10? Of course they do. And if they're a 10, they should be walked out of camp straight into combat stress and equivalent services. That's what should happen. And if you're a 1, you should be made aware of everything there is to offer. We should go to the same places time and time again for housing, for debt, for pensions. We need our own veterans social services. We are so far behind the Americans and the Australians and the Canadians on certain things. And it's not that the money's not there, because it is. You know, no wonder parents are not letting their children join, because we've got hundreds of veterans checking out a year. You know, the 82, 83, 87, there's a few quibbles, you know, because there's some families that don't want to be added onto that list from last year. Right? But imagine actually how big the problem is. It's bigger than that, by far. And I've been sending emails for the last 3 years saying we've got a massive problem. Let's keep having a look. Took me 3 years to get my PIP back down when it changed from over to DLA. Yeah, my point. You know, my point made. We had to have austerity cuts. We had to get rid of the dull dossers that have never worked, never intend to work, limping about until you see them on a bounce castle or something like that. We had to. But I believe special consideration should have been taken to when it comes to our community. Steve Willows, lovely to see you, Steve. Right, the suicides to date are 90 plus. You know, there's some debate about that figure. I'm not saying that, you know, 90 didn't happen. I know of some suicides that are not on that list. So, how big is the problem? How big is the actual problem? And can you imagine? I've seen the power of Facebook. I've seen the power of groups and self-help and buddying and helping. And a lot of people have copied our method of care with forgotten veterans. And that's fine. Great. But I've seen the power of how mental health can be delivered through social media. Will the government catch up and the MOD? I don't know. But I'm hopefully going to be holding meetings soon to try and make them see that there is other options. And if this is working for so many of us, then there needs to be more investment into delivering mental health through the internet. Tobias Elwood, straight talking guy, I like him. He said this will never happen again. So Tobias, and all your mates, are you going to listen? Are you going to listen to the lower ranks? Are you going to listen to the people that this is affecting most? Because that is the only way, you know, is to listen to the people it's actually affecting. Alright, I've got 15 people. Woo! I might be Kanye West, but we're going well. What I've noticed with my live feeds is I don't get many that come up because I don't do it on a set time. Maybe if I did it at 8:30 every night, I'd get a bigger audience. But actually, it's the fact that everyone shares it and tries and puts it into their own little groups. That's how we can reach out, you know. I've lived my life openly and honestly on Facebook. I've worn my heart on my sleeve. And, you know, when I first started, I didn't notice as many people being quite honest and open. And, I think the diehard amongst you probably called me a bit of a pansy or something. I wouldn't be surprised. I've been called lots of things. But that's the truth, you know. I had to say it. I had to do it. I had to live it. I had to be broken down to nothing to see where we needed to go with this. What needs to happen? We're being led by people that have read it from a book. And you've got to live it. And I'm not saying there isn't a place for academic study and research and bright young intelligent people coming out of university and going into this world. But you need to mix it with us to get the balance right. Actual live case studies. That's why I've been taking families of the suicides from last year to their councils so they can actually say, this is what happened to my loved one. This is where it went wrong. This is what needs to happen to move forward. Because isn't it better they become ambassadors for mental health to help stop these problems rather than become angry people that want answers? Because no one wants their loved one's death to be in vain. No one. Not all can handle it. Not all are strong enough to brush themselves off and carry on. And we will keep on supporting them people. But the ones that have got a good voice in their head, the ones that want to tell their story should be listened to. Neil Davies, Trevor Ford, thanks for joining me. The majority of the 718 million awarded by LIBOR should have been spent. Oh Christ, that's a long one, Neil. I'm not going to read it all out now because it's very long, but you've got some really good points there, okay? And it sparked my little it sparked my next thought. You know, I've actually been very impressed with Johnny Mercer. I've been up to Westminster to meet him. I've spoke to him on the phone before. I watch and follow what he does. And when he ripped those charities apart in and representatives in Westminster recently, I thought, well, it's got to be said. You were telling us you're doing a great job and coming back year after year after year with your hand out. Well, looking at Facebook, evidence is starting to say the opposite. These charities have done some amazing work. Amazing. And without their help, there would have been nothing. But my point is, with that amount of money, that amount of staffing, that amount of infrastructure, you should be doing more. And when is enough money enough? Because I think, you've got to filter that money down. You have to filter it down to really be, to reach its full capability. I was advising the Armed Forces Covenant that they needed to change the scheme so small charities can get small amounts of money without a Bible of paperwork. Because it's always the same faces with the noses in the right places that get the help. And actually, one thing I've shown and one thing I've seen is what veterans need to do when they come out is become a veteran and be proud of their service and meet at breakfast clubs, meet at drop-ins, meet at social events, meet at fundraising, and remember the good parts of why they joined up, and remember the pride and the dignity that we held. I've showed Historic England recently that we have got a wealth of experience and skills that they didn't realise we had. And now they are coming round to our thinking. Karen Means is watching. Hello, Karen. Christopher Rogers, do you keep a diary, Gaz? Weirdly, my diary's on my body. I know that sounds a bit strange. When I've been through tough times in my life and career, I've had tattoos, and we're having nerve problems. They are bloody painful. I don't have that many these days. But they are a diary of my life, and I can look at my body and tell you why I had that. And I've got some good ones and I've got some terrible ones. And actually, it's a bit like self-harming, and it's putting on a pretense, a mask. I'm a warrior, I'm hard. Don't mess with me, don't come near me, don't talk to me. And actually, it was a mask hiding a quite vulnerable, sad man. Covenant needs making law. Yes, it does. I know one of the original founders of the Armed Forces Covenant, MP Anne-Marie Trevelyan. We correspond a lot, and I actually know how much she put into this. And their hands are tied as well. They are. Unless as a public, we put pressure on them to make it law, it's not going to happen. But the problem is, we've got all little splinters of groups and God knows what that are so egotistical and so focused on what they're doing and thinking that they're the only ones that can do it properly. We're not uniting. United against suicide, it's not even a thing. Because we're not united. And I can't work. I've tried to work with a lot of these people. Tried to. But their egos and their rank and their BS gets in the way. I'm just me. I've worn my heart on my sleeve. I've told it as it is. I've let you into my life, my world. My missus is the complete opposite to me. She's private. She deals with her own stuff in-house. but I'm not. But I believe I lived through that day for a reason. And I know I'm not perfect, and I'm not the norm, and I'm not the typical CEO. And I am prepared to tackle people if they're being knobs, which doesn't win you friends. But I believe I and we were put here for a reason. And if that reason is to ruffle high-hanging feathers and get in their faces and say, we thank you for what you've done, but we're asking you to do more, then so be it. You know? I think recently there's been a lot of change of heart in this community towards me and this charity. We've been judged from a distance, and they're charity bashers, they're troublemakers. No, we're not. We're decent human beings that can see a massive problem, are fed up of collecting, and no spending. So we've decided to do it what we think is the proper way. You know, and it is probably embarrassing a few people, because it makes you think, well, if they can give 90% away and only keep 10% back as a footfall, well, then why can't the others? But, let's not get into charity bashing. That's not what it's about. It was about the question. So let's go back to the question. With what I've said today, do you think it is selfish for someone to take their own life? Give me a yes or a no. Come on. There's 10 of you there. Give me a yes or a no. Has your opinion changed? Has your opinion changed watching what's been going on? I'm not digging at people that think it's yes, it is selfish. I'm only trying to be honest from my own heart and tell you how I felt and what happened to me. Well, Tommy Addison, through alcohol and mental state at the time of attempting suicide, selfishness doesn't come into your mind. If you're traumatised and the trauma is the only thing that's on your mind, then suicide can only seem the way out of it. I know, because I was that man and was saved as the chair was kicked away. Prolonged exposure therapy was my saviour. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you for being honest with that, mate. That's. I hope you don't mind me reading that out. But you did put it on Facebook, so some very good points made there, Tommy, and you are right. It is a state of mind. I 100% believe. It is a state of mind, and usually it's done with the best intention. However, wrong that may seem to outsiders. One thing I'm worried about, right, is there seems to be a trend of when you start trying to kill yourself, often people do it a little bit at a time and it gets bigger and the attempts are more severe and they start becoming more regular. That's what worries me. Now I've broken that seal, what happens if I go back? What happens? Do I become that selfish or not selfish person again? That's what scares me. But at least I'm aware of that. At least I know that. At least I can see that. And at least I'm trying to get the help. It's the ones that can't see it that need it most. It's the ones that can't see anything positive. I get cases like it daily. It doesn't matter what you put in front of them. Their depression is so severe, they cannot see a positive way out. And that's how, CBT, counselling, EMDR, whatever, association therapy, whatever it is, this is what can change that mindset. Support. And being open enough to actually say, I'm struggling. I was struggling last week. I had a bad week. And it's made me realise that I've still got work to do in there. Not just around my body. I need more help. And I must get it for my family, if not for me. Because I don't want to put them through what I put them through in 2015. No way. And I'm so sorry. I can't change it. I can't take it back. I can only move forward. I can't change my past. I can only learn from it. And I think my family know that now. And when I'm a knob, because I can be, and when I have my moments or I get in my depressive bouts, they stand by me because they know I'm trying to change. And that they know. Tough. When I think of them, it gets to me. This is why I do what I do. So people out there like me that felt forgotten, felt like they needed a buddy, someone to fall back on. If I'd had a buddy, maybe I wouldn't have done what I did. If I'd had somewhere to go for respite care and have access to mental health and education and therapeutical hobbies, maybe I wouldn't have done what I did. So that's why we do what we do, because of what's happened to me and what's happening to others. I'm going to leave that there because I've touched a nerve really. But I just wanted you out there to try and understand from the perspective of someone that has had suicidal problems why I did what I did. And I hope that is some comfort to the families of last year, this year, the year before, the 80s, the 90s, the noughties that have lost their service veteran or serving forces to mental health. I'm Gaz Weaving. I'm the founder and CEO of Forgotten Veterans UK. Please share this. That's the only way. Sharing's caring. Go and put it in all your groups so others that can feel forgotten and like I did can come out the light, come out the dark and step into the light. Thank you. Bye-bye.